She's back, you know.
Oh, is she?
Yes, she is.
Oh, great, I'm really pleased.
You don't seem very surprised.
Oh, should I be?
I was flabbergasted.
Oh, you're easily shocked.
Thank you very much.
What shocked you this time?
That she's back.
Who?
The one we've just been talking about.
Talking about?
You knew immediately who I meant.
When?
When I told you she's back.
Oh, is she?
Stop.
Stop what?
Stop saying you know if you don't.
It's what happens when you've been married so long.
Have we?
Don't you remember?
I remember shock and leaves and more hilarity than I've ever known.
In a good way, I hope.
Ah, such laughter, such leaves.
Best to marry in autumn.
That's beautiful.
My mother told me so when I was a boy.
Did she?
Often.
But you once said your parents were married in summer on a day of record-breaking heat.
So many deaths. More than in 39 or 83.
You and your dates.
You and your want of dates.
At least I remember our wedding.
Do you?
Vividly, as if it was yesterday.
I bet you can't recall the year.
I know it was Cup Day.
It was Labour Day.
Are you sure? I do recall the general hilarity when that grain of rice landed in my eye.
I wasn't laughing.
Oh, Sally Chilvers was so convulsed, Marcia had to lead her away.
Sally was always convulsed.
Worse now, they say.
I wasn't convulsed.
You were so sweet about the rice, solicitous.
I wanted everything to go right. I always did.
Still?
Nowadays I'm less sanguine.
Well, you extracted the grain of rice so delicately, surgically, and I loved you even more.
And then Harry Conduit got his hand stuck in the car door and we all ended up in emergency.
Oh, poor Harry.
I wonder what happened to Harry.
You did lose touch.
Strange never to see your best man again.
You know, it felt very abrupt, especially since he'd just broken his hand in your service.
Were people curious?
Perplexed.
I suppose it's against the natural order. One relies on one's best man to deliver the worst speech ever inflicted on an audience, then to be, well, sort of a constant in your life, whether you like it or not. Doubles partner, guarantor, godfather to one's first child, that sort of thing.
If one had a child.
Quite.
I still see my bridesmaids.
Do you? All of them?
Well, most of them.
Often?
Annually.
Do you see Jane?
Never.
I fancied Jane.
I knew you did. That's why I married you.
What, to keep me away from Jane?
To secure you.
How proprietorial is that?
Ah!
Was she there?
Who, Jane?
The other one, the one we've been talking about.
Vanessa?
Was she there?
At our wedding? I expect so. She was a bridesmaid.
Remember how she'd always joke about being always the bridesmaid?
That and her height.
She was the tallest woman I've ever danced with.
Did you? At our wedding? Shouldn't you have been dancing with me?
Oh no, this was earlier, at a party, long before you happened.
Which year was that?
There you go again. Really, you'd be a hopeless witness.
So, you danced with Vanessa all those indeterminable years ago.
And how we danced. The Rolling Stones had just released their last authentic hit long before they became the regurgitative Stones. We couldn't get it out of our heads. We kept playing all night despite people's protests. Eventually they gave up and we had the whole floor to ourselves. For hours we whirled around that parquet floor like exhibitionists. I blush to think about it, to have been so
Happy?
so abandoned in public.
I wish I'd been there. I've never seen you in a state of abandonment.
But we didn't know each other then. You hadn't happened.
Well, I wish I happened earlier.
We happened to each other in our own good time, when we were ready.
You always say that. Hey, were you wearing paisley? Flares?
We both went in black velvet.
Oh.
Vanessa even made me up.
Goths! Oh, gosh, but what happened after the dancing and the public abandonment?
It was quite late when we left. There was pink on the horizon and we all craved eggs. I remember there was a ringing in my left ear which has never fully gone away. Then poor old Dorsey fell off his bike into a rose bush and we had to pull him out, thorns and all. Vanessa and I walked him home, dabbing him.
Poor old Dorsey. Did I know him?
Doubtful. He was a bit of a tosser. Crazy for Vanessa, of course.
Is that why he fell off his bike?
Maybe. He had a problem with women and balance.
Well, you clearly remember her now.
Who?
Vanessa, my bridesmaid.
How could I forget that dress?
She was beautiful, legs up to here.
Utalempa, my mother used to call her.
Did she?
I suspect that's why Harry Conduit got his hand stuck in the car door as they were seeing us off.
He was smitten. Didn't they marry or something?
Well, briefly, not very satisfactorily, I understand.
For Harry?
For Vanessa.
Ah, you were close.
Close-ish. As close as one can be to Isabel Archer.
Whoa, that's very good. I never thought of that.
Didn't you?
Well, did you think of her as Isabel Archer as you whisked her around the dance floor?
No. Much later when I understood her better.
And which one were you?
What?
I love it when you say what like that, so curtly. Which character were you in the novel? That aristocrat. The one we desperately wanted Isabel to marry when we studied at university. What was he called again?
I'm not Lord Warburton, nor was meant to be.
Ah, an attendant lord, perhaps.
Very good.
Please don't tell me you were Ralph Touchett.
I'm fond of Ralph Touchett.
So was Isabel. But Ralph Touchett, or Rafe, I suppose the English would say, is the saddest man in the house of fiction. Remember all those aphorisms of his about being an invalid? I thought of one the other day when I was lunching that new author of mine, the one who wants to write a book about being a double amputee.
Remind me.
Ralph says, oh, when people forget I'm a poor creature, I'm often incommoded, but it's worse when they remember it.
That's perfect. Will you use it in the title?
Incommoded? Hardly.
An epigraph, perhaps.
Well, my author wants to quote 3 Iron Men from Queensland.
Oh, clearly you have a bestseller on your hands.
I hope so. I really need a hit this summer to keep the wolves at bay.
Are they being difficult?
Vile.
Screw them.
Well, so if you weren't Warburton or Touchett, who were you?
Deny it or not, deep down all men secretly admire Gilbert Osmond.
Rubbish! You're no Osmond. I think you were the 4th man. What was his name? Woodward? Goodwood. Caspar Goodwood, the one who loves Isabel all the time and follows her to London. The one whose kiss is like...
White lightning.
Ah, yes, white lightning.
A flash that spread and spread again and stays.
Oh my God, you were Caspar Goodwood.
I'm no Goodwood. I'm none of them. I simply observed her.
Never proposed to her.
I stood by.
Such a courtier. But I had no idea you were so intoxicated.
Beguiled, not intoxicated.
Are you sure you weren't a little bit inflamed?
I'm not the type. I left that to others.
Poor old Harry Conduit.
And poor old Dorsey.
The duffer. But didn't you say Vanessa worked for you?
Yeah, she did. I gave her her first job in sales.
How did you meet?
She applied like everyone else. We had 2 jobs going that year and 1,400 applications, but Vanessa stood out. I appointed her almost immediately. I didn't even phone her referees.
Gosh, that's not like you.
It was rash. But it turned out well.
Yes, I bet she was good in sales.
She did turn it around. Those booksellers didn't know what had hit them. She'd waltz in one of her little white suits and they'd double their orders.
Ah, yes, lots of lovely reprints.
Lots.
Oh, those were the days, darling. And how long was she with you?
Not long enough. She was seeing someone, mystery man they called him, married, we surmised. I knew it wasn't going well. She began taking lots of leave. One day she phoned in with tonsillitis, only to be photographed with him that night at the opera. They called her the diva after that, not a popular girl with the girls. I had to cover for her all the time. One time she came in with a bruised eye, said she'd been playing tennis. Then she didn't come in at all. And next we knew she'd gone to London and got a job there. England was where she always wanted to end up, the last of the Anglophiles. It was endearing when it wasn't infuriating. Her accent became more and more affected. She deplored the way Australians spoke. She had this fantasy that all Brits spoke as if they'd been to Oxbridge. Once I got really fed up with her and I said, "Have you ever really listened to David fucking Beckham?" How she idealised Brits.
Crush, she can't have worked with them for long enough.
I think of her now as an anachronism in a little white suit.
And then she vanished.
Well, for a few years. She came back, of course, after the first of her marriage as well. The first serious one. We don't count Harry Conduit. I saw a bit of her then.
And did you give Vanessa her old job back?
I thought she'd ask, but she didn't. Someone else was looking after her.
Married?
Possibly. That was always her shtick.
Old story. Might be a book in it.
Then you came along, and it was love at first sight between the two of you.
Aye.
I couldn't get a look in. You'd go off to lunch, and I'd never see you again. What did you talk about all those afternoons?
Not you, darling. So I'd happened by then.
Emphatically and irreversibly. All those gin and tonics. I even asked you to marry me on our third date.
You did. Quite a fast worker, I said to myself.
Well, I decided it'd be cheaper than taking you out to expensive restaurants and buying you Rotorua.
Thank you very much. That's why Vanessa was my bridesmaid.
I asked you as a favour.
That was so chivalrous of you. Yes. It all comes back now.
Like Vanessa. How long is she back for?
Actually, not long. Just a week to dispose of the family house. The mother's gaga and the brothers have shoved her in a home.
Oh, poor Vanessa. So you won't see her again?
No, I hope to. Marcia invited her to our reading group next Tuesday.
Well, that was gracious for Marcia. Did Vanessa accept?
She said she'd join us if she had time to read the book. She never has, or so she claims. I find it implausible.
That's our curse in publishing. We think they've read everything or want to, but they haven't, and they don't.
You should come along too.
To your reading group? I thought men weren't welcome.
Well, we'd make an exception for a costive old Jamesian like you.
Well, thank you very much. What book are you doing?
Haven't I told you?
You're very secretive about your reading group.
Oh, well, this month it's Portrait of a Lady.
For Vanessa,
Pure happenstance.
just like us.
What?
You see, you say what too.
Huh. What do you mean, just like us?
That's how we met. Happenstance.
Ah, so you do remember.
How could I forget, hammered though I was?
My little black dress.
Where is it now? You never wear it.
I gave it to Marcia's daughter. She'd ogled it for long enough. Vintage.
You are good to that girl.
I'm good to all my goddaughters.
I saw her once more, you know.
My goddaughter?
Vanessa.
When was this?
Oh, a couple of years ago, 3.
You didn't say.
Well, it was really so abject, I didn't want to think about it.
Abject?
Yeah. She'd been back in the UK for years, married again, someone else from Oxbridge. A Whitehall man, I understand, not a usual type. She'd come back to visit her mother. One evening, I was at readings preparing for a launch. Then I heard this extraordinary voice emanating from modern classics, a kind of parody. I knew it was Vanessa without seeing her. She was there with Sally Chilvers. Apparently they'd kept up.
Oh,
My author was late as usual, like the fucking books, so I went over to say hello. Sel was her usual ditzy, effusive, self-deprecating self. But what was strange and rather discomforting was that Vanessa couldn't place me, or pretended not to.
Vanessa, our Vanessa.
Our Vanessa.
But that's absurd. You two go back hundreds of years. You gave her her first job. You danced with her until you went deaf. Had they been drinking?
I think so, but it wasn't that. She didn't want to know me. It was as if for Vanessa I no longer existed, no longer mattered.
Bitch. What did she say?
Nothing. Poor old Sel was a bit thrown, I must say, but she did her best and babbled on. Vanessa turned her back on me and roamed through the D's in modern classics.
Fucking Dostoevsky.
It was pretty diabolical.
It must have been mortifying, like when you get cut in public by some author you've rejected. One of those dreary old sadistic dons. But why do you think she cut you?
Well, it must have been something I did or didn't do.
Oh God, that's too obscure for me. Did you say something to her?
Oh, well, Sal and I chatted away as best we could for a few minutes. Then my young man arrived and I left them.
No wonder you don't want to come to our reading group.
Well, it would be pretty awkward.
Well, that's a perfectly horrible story. I like Vanessa less now. I've a good mind to ask Marcia to disinvite her.
Oh, no. Don't do that. That's what she'd want.
You're right. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction.